Don't touch anything.
It's the greatest find yet. Nothing compares to it.
But it's definitely something you should hear.
This is The Real Deal with Larry Lawton.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to The Real Deal with me, Larry Lawton. I have a great show today. Yes, we're going to go a little bit political today, and people who know me know my political affiliation of being a libertarian. Right on my refrigerator right there, you can see it. And anyway, we have a presidential candidate in the house today. We have Ter Maat. Is that how you pronounce it?
That is how you pronounce it. As long as you get the Mike part right, you've gotten all the important stuff out of the way. It's great to be with you, Larry.
Thank you for coming, Mike. I really appreciate it. We're going to get into you today. I'd like to really let the audience know what you stand for, why you're a libertarian, why we need another party. That's one of my big arguments in politics today. Before I get started, I have to thank my sponsors, Oliva, man. They have been there forever. The best company in the world. We have our cigars. I'll be going to Nicaragua in January for a trip to roll cigars and see how it feels from the air and the whole works. So make sure you support Oliva Cigars. Also, Gangster Redemption is going crazy again. We have a new edition coming out. The new edition has the extra chapters from my life. The prison cookbook is coming out as well. Look at that cover all messed up. There's a new covers, new everything coming out. We have all of that. Also, please check out mybookie.ag. That's mybookie.ag. Use promo code Lawton, and you get 50% match. So you put up $100, you get $150 to spend, and they're good. It's mybookie.ag. So check them out. Use promo code Lawton. Mike, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. You've already impressed me 3 times over. You've made my wife happy because she wants one of your cigars.
She's having, we can smoke
she knows
one right now.
brands, she knows yours, and she wants an Oliva. So.
Oh, you have both. I have multiple different Olivas. We have a cigar we can smoke, and we will smoke, I have a feeling, because I'm going to be here a little bit here with Mike, and if you don't mind.
No, of course not. I think it's marvelous.
And Nick is here. Nick is, you know, what I like, everybody knows Nick too as well. We'll have arguments and fights, and we love it. What I like about Nick is he pushes me because he knows about, and I'm going to be honest, back in my day, people who know me, I bought politicians. Yeah. Literally.
Yeah.
You probably read and seen about it and how I manipulated an election. Literally. Mm-hmm. Bought 2 of the councilmen.
I can't even imagine, Larry. Can't even imagine.
And the reason, that's great. Well, you know, it's not even about buying. People think you buy them by just giving people money. No, it's never like that. We all know that.
No, it's always more complicated than that.
Absolutely.
Which makes it harder for some people and easier for others.
Yeah, absolutely. We're not even here because I don't even believe you're like that. First of all, we're the same age, so
we are the same age. I think I got a couple of months on you.
You do. I feel like it's very rarely that I'm the younger one in the room. Very rarely. But I love my life. I'm having a good time. People who know my show love it because I tell it like it is. It's called The Real Deal just for that reason.
And we're going to keep it real today.
Absolutely.
We're going to keep it real today. By the way, I really like your book title there. I am a big fan of any type of redemption. And we all need redemption, by the way. I'm not trying to put this on you. Good for you, good for all of us, and good for everyone who can hear our voices. That's the direction to go.
I got a message because you were a cop for 11 years. I know you need redemption. Listen, people who know me know I also support good law enforcement.
Yep.
Very. If they're a good cop, and I don't mean just like, you know, perfect. Listen, a cop gives a guy a break. Good, they should. Cops should be part of the community. Should be part.
That's right.
I go next door to a cop who's a neighbor, and he has to arrest my kid. Never. You come in here, no matter what's in here, you help me help my kid.
That's right. Well, it's a matter of prioritization, whether we know your family or not, and if there's anything that you and I have experienced together, maybe from different angles, it is that you and I understand that there's a big difference between good police work and bad police work. I've seen both. I was lucky that I worked for a good agency, you know, on the whole.
Did you work just for the one?
Yeah, I worked for one agency for 11 and a half years. I was on the road the entire time. I never asked to do anything else. I fell in love with it. When I started, I thought it was going to be a 3-year in and out, maybe a 2-year.
Oh, really? You thought a cop job was going to be like a military job?
I thought, you know, in 2 or 3 years, I'll be done with this. I'll have experienced it. It'll have been enough for me. I was in the police academy at 49 years old. This was a second career for me.
Oh, wow. I did not know. I didn't catch that. I knew you looked older in the pictures.
Yeah. I was a professional economist for well over 2 decades. And I went into the police academy, worked as a cop from age 49 to 60.
Wow. Did you get a lot of respect because of your age?
A lot of respect and a lot of teasing. For anyone who is thinking about going into the police academy at an advanced age, the one thing that I would recommend, 2 things I guess I would recommend. One is you better be physically fit. And I was lucky in that regard. I've always been healthy. Indeed.
We need a president who's healthy. Please, we got 2 80-year-olds.
Well, we're not setting the bar too high right now. Right?
Bingo.
We're not setting the bar too high. Indeed, I won the Physical Fitness Award, and it was not age-adjusted, Larry.
Wow.
So that says more about the 27-year-olds, I think it does, than about the 49-year-olds. But the other thing I would recommend is to lean into it, own it. Understand that you are a little bit different. We figured out that more than 50% of our class had at least one parent younger than I was.
Wow, is that great?
It was great. And it makes certain aspects of police work easier in some sense. Easy is probably not quite the right word.
Well, you were mature.
That's more mature. You got your feet on the ground. It's a lot easier to talk to parents about raising kids if you've done it yourself. It's a lot easier to handle domestic situations when you've been, in the trenches yourself a little bit. And you have a greater perspective, I think. You have a better sense of priority. You understand what's not important. A lot of police work is figuring out what's unimportant. And I think it's harder when you're in your 20s. Nick, I'm not trying to run you down, buddy.
No, I totally agree. I think that younger
as you get
cops are a bit more snappy than the seasoned cops, for sure.
Yeah.
I think that younger cops have something to prove a lot.
He's 26.
He's 26. Is that a big number? That's not a number that...
Yeah, he got off his parents' insurance.
All right, well, there you go.
That's the big thing, yeah. That's the big thing.
I'm proud of you. And I've worked with Nick, so I know he's highly professional.
Very
he's
professional.
A terrific young guy.
Oh, thank you.
I tease him, but I need him.
No, of course you need him, and good for you for being able to tease him without him smashing you in the face. But
that won't work. I'll show you some videos. That didn't work.
As he gets older, he'll understand that prioritization is one of those things that changes as you get older.
I didn't know if you knew I'm also an honorary police officer.
I figured as
much.
much.
St. Louis.
I figured as
much.
much.
There's a badge on my wall, and there's also a probation thing on the wall. I'm the only ex-con in the United States who's an actual police officer sworn in by the state of Missouri.
I like that.
I'm the
impressed
only
by that.
ex-con in the world with that one, congressional record. I am recognized on the floor of the United States Congress for being the only police officer and helping families all over the United States. That's
Well,
the only
thank
one who's had
you.
that.
Thank you for doing all that you do.
The reason I'm only showing you that, I mean, we'll take some pictures.
Well, and
all that
by the
kind of
way,
stuff.
a lot of weird shit has been recognized on the floor of the House of Representatives.
No,
So
that's
I
not
know
Florida. That is federal.
Yeah. On the House of Representatives floors, a lot of weird shit's been recognized there. So I know that just you asserting that doesn't necessarily mean anything terrific.
Well, that does, because that's pretty one of the weirdest. Most unusual.
It is unusual.
Yes.
And as is your background, very unusual.
Well, and you're going to see something later. I marched for President Reagan when I was in the military.
Good for you.
And you know that because a lot of people don't know. That was my first president I actually voted for. Yeah. That's when I was dumb. I was a Republican. I was a young Republican. Then I was a Democrat. And now I'm what I believe I should be, which is a libertarian, which you are. And we're going to transition.
And it is what you should be, too.
Let me just ask you a few questions. First of all, I mean, it's an amazing career, and actually, thank you for your service. I often tell cops, we need good cops. When people say to me, Larry, you're all with us, you're this, and I said, hold on. If your house is robbed, what do? Do you call 411 or 911? Most kids don't even know 411.
Exactly.
But you call 911. And why? Because you need the police. But you do need a good cop to get there and not make you the criminal, not make looking for other things. They need to be there to become for you to be a positive role model, a positive influence. That's why I'm a big believer. First of all, I study law enforcement because I teach academies now.
Yeah.
And first of all, I think cops are way too young. I don't think they should be getting a badge. We know that the male brain
I agree 100%,
matures
by the way.
at 25.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
I agree.
You got a kid who's a
in
badge
Florida,
at 22.
you can hire at 19 in Florida.
What?
You can hire at 19 in
19-year-old
Florida. I know you heard me. I know you heard me.
I didn't hear you. You could hire, but he can't be on the road.
Oh, yeah.
He could be in a patrol car pulling me over.
Yeah, now I don't mean any disrespect to the young man who is in our academy because he happened to be mature beyond his years and a terrific young man, and everyone tells me he's turned into a good cop. So I don't mean anything disparaging about him in particular, but yeah, we had a 19-year-old in our academy. His mom had to buy his weapon for him.
What?
Let that sink in.
What?
Let that sink in.
Yeah, I think I have to light a cigar.
Yeah.
The
And he's not a great example because, like I say, he was a very mature young guy and he became a good cop and he had his head on straight. But in general, hiring a 19-year-old, yeah.
just like war, Mike. I don't believe kids should be out shooting and in a war wherever and have to kill someone, come back here, and trust me, I'm a disabled vet
And
as
deal
well.
with it.
I'm a retired military. I'm Coast
Yeah.
Guard retired. And I can't believe that they could take a young kid, have him go to war at 18, 19, kill somebody, come back like it's nothing.
Yeah.
Their brain is not mature.
Yeah,
We
and
have
then-
youthful offender acts for that reason.
Well, we do have it for that reason, and I think that there's a couple of things that you started to put your finger on. One is when they come back, whether they had understood the effects on the way in to the war or not, when they come back, they have to deal with what it is that they have done. And as they mature, they are going to feel differently about some of the things that they have done, and that's going to affect them the rest of their lives. And were they really prepared for that aspect of it when they made the decision to go into the military? I don't think so. The other thing that I think needs to be said is that imagine how difficult recruiting would be if you limited yourself to people who really could think this through.
Out of the car. Excuse me. Out of the
Yeah.
car, Mike. Thanks, Nick. I'm sorry, Mike.
You know, I think that the military is well served in their recruiting efforts and hitting their numbers by going after such young men. And I don't mean just because they're more professionally available because they haven't developed careers yet, although that's a big aspect of it too. But these are young people who have not yet developed an ability to think some of these things through. That makes them soft targets for the military. And that bothers me a little bit too. You know, if you had to make your case to me about war and about what you're going to do with my time and my effort and what you're going to do with our resources, if you had to make your case to me, that's going to be a tougher sell. And I don't mean just because I'm an anti-war libertarian, which I am, but just to make your case to a grown-ass man, that's going to be a bit of an uphill climb for someone who's used to selling 18-year-olds and 19-year-olds on the idea of joining the Army.
That's like when they came to my school, I always felt like targeted.
You
where
are.
I was like, I don't think you should even be here talking to me like this. For one, I'm in like a private Catholic school.
Right.
So I don't know why.
Wrong. Bad move. Me too. A bad move.
But I always did feel like targeted when I was there, where they were like, sign this piece of paper, like fill out this form. No, I'm okay, guys. Like, I'll sit in the back of the class.
Well, Nick,
Not
I'm
really here
going
for
to
the
push back on
speech.
both of you, Nick, because I was 17 when I went in the military.
It's messed up.
And I was at a place where I was a rough kid around
But
the
even
edges.
like not even
And it
holding
kinda
a
helped
weapon.
me.
Oh, I'm
Not
sure
even-
it did.
But even not holding a weapon, like picking up all those bodies, were not good for a kid.
No,
You
like
know?
me, no, absolutely.
didn't
I
have to
picked up
kill
50
anyone, but
bodies in 1 year.
That's
and,
definitely not healthy for a kid.
Oh, no question. That's why I am PTSD'd out, and or you can go a number of reasons where I went wrong. But this ain't about me. I want to get back to you on the libertarian front. First of all, we rarely do politics unless it's something that really touches me. I won't bring a Republican or a Democrat. I'm sick of their
I
party
appreciate
line
that.
bullshit.
I understand.
I really am. Here's my issues, and I go right out to
Let's
them,
hear
so
it.
we're going to go. First of all, we know, I think most people on my show and most people around are, like we said earlier, socially liberal. I mean, whatever you
Right.
want to call liberal. I mean, totally. Like, I'm sick even of liberals today, the woke community. But anyway,
Right.
liberal meaning, listen, I don't care what you do. In your house, drugs, sex, rock and roll, I don't care.
Right.
Have fun, as long as you're not
Right.
hurting other people.
Exactly.
And you're not doing something to a child or something of that nature.
Right.
That's it. And fiscally, I think most people want it. We're workers. We pay our taxes. We don't want to keep paying. I wish I could say, I want my tax to go to this, and that. Watch where I go. But then I understand also the other part. I'm pretty astute in politics. Is obviously we need a military. Obviously we need to keep the channels open and the seaways open and the stuff. Do we need to do what we're doing? Probably not. I mean, it's
Absolutely
a little
not.
bit.
Yep.
Right. But how do we get a third party? Libertarian.
I think that we need to point out to people that, first of all, they only have one party for all practical purposes right now. You've got a party that is represented by a combination of Republicans and Democrats who have left behind what used to be their agenda, their traditional agenda that would differentiate them. For example, when you and I were growing up, it was commonplace to find Republicans who actually were fiscally conservative, who were pro-free trade. These things rarely exist these days. You have some Republicans who like to claim that they are fiscally conservative, but the truth of the matter is that they don't do any better job than a Democrat at holding back the extent to which the government spends too much money. Similarly, on the Democratic side, when you and I were growing up, think back to 72 and 76, there were examples of anti-war Democrats. And that is just no longer the case anymore. Robert Kennedy maybe is the most recent example of someone who at least says things that are anti-war, and he's leaving the Democratic Party, and now I think the number of anti-war Democrats is back down to zero, where it has been for the last 20 years. Speaking of woke,
it's money.
Speaking of woke and socially liberal,
Have that lighter?
if you joined the Democratic Party because you were socially liberal, you and your party have gone in two different directions. That party is not really socially liberal anymore in the sense that libertarians are. I mean, as you know, libertarians, our way is, we argue about things, we punch each other in the face, we go have a beer together. If you say something in the Democratic Party which runs afoul of what they say is the prevailing ethic, they'll run you out. They'll run you out of the party. They will advocate for the government to censor you. They will say that you're not woke. They will accuse you of all kinds of horrific things, not the least of which the past 15 years has been racism, whether you have a racist bone in your body or not. That party is not socially liberal.
So true.
And so I think it's important for us to point out that for the vast majority of Americans, our values align better with yours than your values align with what I call the uniparty, but with Republicans or Democrats.
There have been a lot of Thanksgivings ruined because of the talk over, not being able to just agree to disagree or just get back to it.
Yeah.
Like,
well,
Thanksgivings have been ruined.
Yeah, you're right.
You won't notice, Nick, obviously Mike and I, the days of Ronald Reagan and Tip O'Neill sitting down having a beer
are long behind us.
Gone. And I really wish for that.
Would you like one of us to explain who those people were for your audience?
You are going to explain you're definitely going to explain.
Okay.
Because I just wanted to say where you're right, but where I see the difficulty.
Yeah.
Obviously, we all know, and you know this, money runs everything, sad as it is.
Yep.
Thank God I'm at a position in my life where I do say fuck you to everybody.
Right.
Because I take care of my mom. I lived in a prison cell.
Yep.
Trust me, I don't care.
Yeah, I get it.
I don't need that.
Your set
I
of priorities may be different.
I had it and all. I had limousines and money and crazy stuff, and I make money. I don't give a. That's not what drives me.
I get it.
Now I get it that it takes a lot for somebody that to happen to him because I lived in a prison cell for years. I was abused by the prison system. You know my whole story.
Yeah.
But so I'm just a little bit different. But how do we know, like you just said, whether you're a Democrat or a Republican, if you don't follow the party line, you don't get a committee chair, you don't get, then your constituents at home see you're not really relevant, you can't do anything, you can't bring money or pork back to their city, they vote you out, I often told Nick this, and let me see what I say. Young people, now Nick pushes back, and I'm going to let Nick push back on it.
That's fine.
But I used to say, listen, Nick, the young people in this country, there's so many of them. If they were get together, put something together and go to one candidate, a Mike, say Mike.
Yep.
Listen, you want to be the congressman of this community, right? Whatever it is.
Yep.
We are a voting block that's stronger than any voting block here. Period.
Right.
And we will support you. We will give you money. We will get on the corners. We will do everything we need. We want you to put in a bill in your first term for legalizing marijuana. Just give me a number, for example.
Yep.
Legalizing marijuana. You say, sure. You get in there, Speaker of the House, the leader of your party says, nah, it's not time. You don't have co-president. You don't do it. I said to Nick, the young people then come to you and say, you're out. Period. You're out.
Yeah.
They vote you out the next term, 2 years. This is Congress, I'm talking.
Right.
Now, you got kicked out. The next guy said, listen, here's what we told the last guy. We got him elected. If you don't do this. I think it would take maybe a time or two, but I'm just thinking how you could try to make young people get involved with the power that they have.
Yeah.
But Nick makes a great point. Nick, go ahead.
Oh, on that? I just think that, well, for one, they're doing such a good job at dividing even the young people.
Yeah.
It's either one side or the other.
Yeah.
Even young people can't even come into like let's agree to disagree. We're now that too. But also just media has made it just such a game and just such like a not relevant thing, but just why would I do this if the media is going to tell me that?
Yeah, it certainly makes it seem like
know.
you're not going to be able to get traction no matter what you do. I kind of figured that that's where Nick was going to go, and I agree with you. It is true that as youngsters, you could form a huge voting coalition block, but that could be said for any age category.
Yeah.
And the truth of the matter is that every age category in the United States is deeply, deeply divided. I think that the vast majority of Americans, and I know that you would agree with me on this, Larry, the vast majority of Americans have what I would call a libertarian streak. They wouldn't identify it as such. Most Americans cannot spell libertarianism. When I ran for Congress a couple of years ago in Broward County, Florida, I spent half my time, Nancy knows this, my wife is sitting over here with us, Nancy knows this, I spent half my time standing in a Walmart parking lot explaining to people while I was passing out brochures what a libertarian is, what the party stands for. First of all, explaining to people that it exists, right? And then explaining what it stands for. I think that it's incumbent upon us to form a coalition across age groups of people who believe that the government is too intrusive, right? That the government has become too authoritarian, not because of separate phenomenon, but because it divides us. Mm-hmm. In other words, I believe that a lot of the authoritarianism in the United States has grown out of this idea that we have a two-party system, each half of which is dedicated to nothing more important than keeping the other side out of power. When I was growing up, we used to, when I say growing up, I mean when I was in my 20s and 30s, as an economist, looking around the world, we used to make fun of other countries who would have an authoritarian upgrowth out of democracy. And we would say that could never happen in the United States. Well, of course, the joke is on us because that's exactly what's happening. And what happens is somebody manipulates the populist fear, right, and says, what you really have to fear, my young 26-year-old friend, what you really have to fear is not the loss of your civil liberties or being separated from your Constitution, losing your constitutional rights. What you really have to fear is that other idiot coming to power.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And therefore, I need more power to protect you. Mm-hmm. And this is what has happened in the United States. Each side has effectively made its case, as you point out, through the media aligning itself with one side or the other, right? Depending on which side you want, you can watch Fox News, or you can watch MSNBC or CNN, and you can get whichever side you want, railing against the other side. And this is where that fear comes from. This is where that manipulation of the fear comes from politicians. And this is where authoritarianism comes from. And I think that we need to form a coalition of Americans who appreciate the fact that we no longer want this style of government. But we all recognize that we want to live in a place where people live their lives by their own standards.
But you know,
people who agree with Larry Lawton.
Well, don't agree with me. Agree with what a person believes, because I think most people believe the same. It's not what Larry believes.
Yeah.
My argument with that is, in today's world, I have cable because I have a 90-year-old mother.
Right.
Nobody their age, nobody under 50 anymore has cable TV or pretty much national TV like CNN, MSNBC.
It's a dying
Fox.
vehicle.
Totally. Believe me, I know this is my field.
Yeah.
we're on this thing every day. Every day. When you walked in, I was on a YouTube channel or whatever, watching some interviews.
Yep.
And everybody gets their news from there. Or Nick will tell you, Nick literally gets most of his stuff. He knows New York because he flew around it as Spider-Man. Don't get me. I live there.
Why did that come in the situation? That didn't have to come up in the conversation.
Well, it's funny.
What the heck?
No, it's the reason I say that, Nick.
And Spider-Man 2 is out, and I don't have it yet.
The reason I say that is then I'm trying to always get the solutions, as you know. Where do we get are the young people too smart and they know where to go to look for information?
They absolutely do.
They do. Now, are they just too, like these old people are just, they're just maneuvering us there? And, the money is what has got it. The young people have the smarts. They don't have the financial resources to put together. Listen, I am a supporter of the Libertarian Party. I always do whatever I can. Any libertarian. And a couple other libertarians are the only people. One person who's a Republican was because he was a friend of mine.
Yeah.
And he ran it, but he was really a libertarian. He had to run because that's the district he was in.
I get it.
And we both know, like you said, old politics they tried third parties. Ron Paul tried. He had a great turnout back in 92, was it? No, maybe even
88.
88 or something like that. And how do we get Mike right here? Obviously, Mike, you and I align politically. We want to listen. We watch nothing but a lot of First Amendment audit shows on YouTube.
Right.
You think these cops would wake up and just watch a few of these shows and not be baited? But I'm glad they're baited, because if you don't know your First Amendment and you don't know what the First Amendment really says and what it represents, you don't belong being a cop.
Well, you're absolutely right. I mean, the good news is that the First Amendment issues don't come up too often for a police officer, but Fourth and Fifth and Sixth Amendment issues come up every day.
Every day.
Every single day. One of the things that surprised me about being a cop is the extent to which police officers have so much discretion over how any particular case plays out.
Not anymore with body cameras.
Less with body cameras, absolutely, and that's a good thing. One of the things that comes to your mind after you've done the job for a couple of years is you realize you are really the last defense of the Constitution. It's a team sport, as we say, but any one officer and certainly a pair of officers have a lot of control over how certain things play out. So you need officers who are in tune with the idea that good police work means protecting people's rights. Most cops become police officers because they want to protect your rights from bad guys, right? But you quickly realize you also need to be out there protecting people's rights from the government and what that represents, because no one else is going to be out there to do it. So to your point, we do need to take advantage of the new vehicles that are out there, but I do believe that we need to tap into what I think is a much larger current than most politicians discuss. This election cycle is not going to be about small things. It's not going to be about, for example, how many billions should we cut off or send to Ukraine. It's not going to be about what should the retirement age be for Social Security. It's not going to be about which of Donald Trump's indictments were any good. It's not going to be about whether Joe Biden can shuffle his way off of an airplane or not. It's going to be
great stuff.
All great stuff. That's good podcast material. Yeah, absolutely. But it's going to be about big things. It's going to be our values as a nation and as Americans, and who aligns with your values.
Will it be about world affairs more so? Because we are now in a world economy. You can deny it. We're not. We are not. And this is for years. We've really been in a world economy.
Absolutely, you're right.
All these people we want it all, stay here. We don't need you. We need everybody.
We need everybody.
Obviously.
Yeah. America First is a dying brand. I think most of Americans are waking up to the idea that it does not represent what you thought it did.
But I want it.
You want America
I want you to use that word, let people think you don't believe in America first.
You want to believe in America first because America's values and principles are not only what reflect yours, but what ought to lead the world. But when Donald Trump says America first, he means he's not pro-free trade.
No, I know that.
And we need to understand that costs us money.
But let me get back to the values things. As a libertarian, your values and my values could be a lot different. I don't mean per se.
Yep.
People will take values and say a gay person or a homosexual, their values aren't what we believe in. I don't believe that. I don't care about that.
Right.
Values to me are just where we're going as a country in a direction.
Agreed. And in a political
I don't want you
context,
to think like you saying that they should be Christian or say
no,
this or whatever. I could care less.
Right. In a political context, what I mean is our values as an American society are that you should be able to do whatever the hell you want. This makes us very different from most societies around the world. A big piece of that is the fact...
It doesn't, Mike. I have to push back. Do you know there's 196 countries in the world right now? 190 are free. Sweden, Japan, Germany. I can go all Europe and go most South America.
Right.
Yes, you have dictators. Yes, you have bullshit elections like Russia, technically.
Yep.
Whatever they're going to say. But if you take all the countries, I don't know if you ever saw something, and it always just keeps hitting me. Do you remember the newsroom with Aaron Sorkin?
100%. Do
you remember the first episode when he talked to the college student? Nick, I want you to pull that up. It is the best 2 minutes, 3 minutes of TV you'll ever see, and it is relevant to this minute.
Yeah.
What am I pulling up?
Go YouTube, pull up newsroom, opening, Aaron Sorkin, opening newsroom. You have to watch. We'll watch it because I want you to answer.
My point is this, that compared to most societies around the world, ours holds in a much higher regard as individuals, not as a government. As individuals, we hold in a much higher regard your right to do what it is that you want.
But all countries do that. You take France, Germany.
Yeah, let's take France.
France.
Yeah, let's take France. There are two communities in France, neither one of which wants you to live the way that you want to live.
Two-part. I totally understand that.
Okay.
Right?
And together they form probably 80% of the population. One is the Muslim community. Okay. And the Muslim community in France is not pushing for a pluralistic, democratic style of government.
Okay.
The rest of France has never, not in the last 1,500 years, has had the idea that you should be able to immigrate to France and pursue a lifestyle that is all your own. That has never been a fundamental aspect of being French. The French believe that the best thing that you can be in the world is from France. In America, the best thing that you can be is someone who has come to America to pursue a life based on our ideals.
That is not what they're saying today. You want to talk about our borders. You want to talk about, no, you need borders. There's these fine lines of how do you handle immigration when you don't have either the money, the funding, the space, the neighborhoods or whatever to fund somebody coming in. And I'm all for helping people. Believe me, a big person part of that. And you take Canada. Mm-hmm. My family's originally from Canada.
Right.
I can't go back to Canada because I'm a convicted felon. Can you believe this? And my family's from a first-generation family mother, my mother.
Right.
So if that's the case...
I think Canada is a good example of a society that really doesn't have an interest in creating an environment in which everyone is comfortable pursuing what it is that they want to pursue. I think that those days are behind us. I think that's 1965 Canada.
I don't even know if that's true because now
I think
more. I don't even know the words progressive. I don't even say it. They have universal health care, which I believe in. They have legalized marijuana throughout the country, the whole country.
Yep.
I mean, these are things that I think are basic things that we should be given to everybody, especially medical care.
Right.
I mean, you could debate it, you can talk about it, but when you see people lose their whole life sentences because of a medical condition or a medical illness, it breaks my heart.
We can argue that round or square, but if you go and you protest in Canada against the national government, they will rack your life. And that
I've seen a lot of videos on that.
That is an unfortunate fact that I wish were not true. I'm not trying to run down Canada. We all have friends that are Canadian, and we all respect Canada as an ally and a nation whose government has been supportive of ours. I don't mean anything negative about any of that.
I want you to hear this.
Yeah.
I want you to hear it because we'll play it on the show too. Nick, play that.
This?
Yes.
The New York
Jets. Greatest opening in
No, I'm going to hold you to an answer on that.
Listen to
What
this
makes
4 minutes
America
worth
the
it.
greatest country in
We'll
the
put
world?
it in the show.
Well, Lewis and Sharon said it. Diversity and opportunity and freedom and freedom.
I'm not letting you go back to the airport without answering the question.
Well, our Constitution is a
Larry,
masterpiece.
turn the
James
mic.
Madison was a genius. The Declaration of Independence is, for me, the single greatest piece of American writing. You don't look satisfied.
One's a set of laws and the other's a declaration of war. I want a human moment from you. What about the people? Why is America
Not the greatest country in the world, Professor. That's my answer.
You're saying...
Yes.
Let's talk about...
Fine. Sharon, the NEA is a loser. Yeah, it accounts for a penny out of our paycheck, but he gets to hit you with it anytime he wants. It doesn't cost money. It costs votes. It costs airtime and column inches. You know why people don't like liberals? Because they lose. If liberals are so fucking smart, how come they lose so goddamn always? Hey. And with a straight face, you're going to tell students that America is so star-spangled awesome that we're the only ones in the world who have freedom? Canada has freedom. Japan has freedom. The UK, France, Italy, Germany, Spain, Australia, Belgium has freedom. So 207 sovereign states in the world, like 180 of them have freedom.
All right.
And yeah, you, sorority girl, just in case you accidentally wander into a voting booth one day, there's some things you should know. And one of them is, there is absolutely no evidence to support the statement that we're the greatest country in the world. We're 7th in literacy, 27th in math, 22nd in science, 49th in life expectancy, 178th in infant mortality, 3rd in median household income, number 4 in labor force, and number 4 in exports. We lead the world in only 3 categories: number of incarcerated citizens per capita, number of adults who believe angels are real, and defense spending, where we spend more than the next 26 countries combined, 25 of whom are allies. Now, none of this is the fault of a 20-year-old college student, but you nonetheless are, without a doubt, a member of the worst generation ever. So when you ask what makes us the greatest country in the world, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Yosemite? Sure used to be. We stood up for what was right. We fought for moral reasons. We passed laws, struck down laws for moral reasons. We waged wars on poverty, not poor people. We sacrificed. We cared about our neighbors. We put our money where our mouths were, and we never beat our chest. We built great big things, made ungodly technological advances, explored the universe, cured diseases, and we cultivated the world's greatest artists and the world's greatest economy. We reached for the stars, acted like men. We aspired to intelligence. We didn't belittle it. It didn't make us feel inferior. We didn't identify ourselves by who we voted for in the last election, and we didn't scare so easy. We were able to be all these things and do all these things because we were informed by great men who were revered. First step in solving any problem is recognizing there is one. America is not the greatest country in the world anymore. Enough?
Okay, really quick, explain what that was.
Okay. That was a TV show. It was only 3 seasons by Aaron. So did you remember the show? Do you remember the show?
Yeah, yeah.
Unbelievable. He would take incidents and political stuff.
When did
Aaron
it run?
Sorkin's a genius.
When did it run?
That was about 7 years ago, 10 years ago, maybe 8 years ago, 10 years, give or take.
Yeah, I'm going to say it ended around there. That
It was only 3 seasons.
Yeah,
that was the first episode.
That episode of 2012.
Is that what it was? Okay, yeah. So 10 years ago.
That is a great critique that should have been delivered at the end of the 20th century regarding the middle of the 20th century. That is an entire generation behind reality, in my view. Let me give you a couple of
Go ahead.
A couple of thoughts that are not opinions. Just
Okay.
a couple of things for us to chew on. For this not to be the greatest nation in the world means someone else is. Let that sink in. That's not a blow-off line. That's something to think about.
That's good.
That's something to think about.
Yeah, but I don't want to aspire to be shit anyway. So I mean, if
No.
if we're
No.
shit, we can't expect to be
No, but
the leader of shit.
We seem to have vested a whole lot of energy into this phrase, are we the greatest nation in the world? I'm not invested in that phrase. I think that we ought to leave it behind. But if we're really going to take that phrase seriously, then that means to whom are we trying to inspire?
Okay,
Yeah. The other thing that I think is important to keep in mind is that there are important metrics. There are important metrics. We do things financially in this country that are absolutely moronic, including blowing, in many years, 4 or 5% of GDP and north of that, which is the equivalent of flushing money down the toilet.
What's
from an
GDP?
economic?
Gross developed product.
4 or 5% of our income we flush down the toilet. From an economic perspective, there's no remuneration from that at all. It's all garbage. When you spend $1 on defense, it's the equivalent economic development-wise of flushing it down the toilet. We do things that are so stupid.
You can't just say that because first I'm thinking of my audience and the young.
Yeah.
Because first of all, GDP. Explain them.
Yeah, I'm explaining. We spend about 4% of our national income.
GDP is your gross domestic. What is it called?
Gross domestic product. But imagine your national income. Okay, the amount of money that we make as a nation. We take about 4% of that a year, and we completely blow it on the Defense Department. Now, I'm not arguing yet that we shouldn't have a Defense Department. I'm going to make that argument in about a half an hour. But however you feel about defense, it is inarguable that the amount of money you spend on it has no advantage for the future, except for protecting you, right? It keeps you safe. But this is not the same as spending it on educating your kids. This is not the same as building a house. This is not the same as investing it into a business or a factory. It does not lead to future productivity. It's just something you do at the moment, right? Economically speaking, it's the same as flushing it down the toilet. We do things that are so moronic, and yet we have a standard of living that far surpasses anywhere else in the world. And the reason we have that is because we have a style of government that we put together that we're trying to maintain, and we keep electing officials that keep trying to undermine that. The reason that critique strikes me as outdated is because nobody today, very few people today, would actually have made that assertion to begin with, that, you know, we have a world in which we have great men leading us. You know, this is not something that anyone has said in 20 years. That you can trust your government, that we build great things. Yeah, that, you know, we build great things, we do great things, we reach for the stars. I don't think that those are words that any serious person has said in the context of why we're a great nation since I was in graduate school. I mean, you know, these are straw man issues. The truth of the matter is that the reason that this is the greatest country in the world is because we are the nation that, for all practical purposes, invented democracy. For all practical purposes, we are the nation that developed the idea that your government should be here for only one legitimate purpose, and that's to protect your individual liberty. Remember, nobody sails across the North Atlantic in the 19th century for any other reason than to live their life by their own standards and to get away from something that is highly oppressive. They don't come here for small things. They come here for big things. The reason we feel like we're in trouble as a nation, and the reason we are in trouble as a nation, is because we have gotten away from those ideals. Not the ideals of building big things and being led by great men, which we now know was all bullshit at the time. We now know that the 1950s, 60s, and 70s, the things that we revered, we should not have been revering. We know that now. But understand that as libertarians, we are the philosophical descendants of the people that put together the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence. If you're waiting for a Republican to lead the charge back toward the way that our government is supposed to work, you're waiting for something that's not going to happen.
100%. But you also know that.
And the same
I'm pushing
thing for a
back on
Democrat.
great people. If we didn't have great leaders, and that can go from World War II, from whether it was an Eisenhower or Roosevelt or people who saw the vision, saw the might, put the country together with the industrial complex we are to build everything to win a world war, or we're speaking German. I mean, that's literally what would have happened. I mean, we are not in America as we know it. If we didn't have great people, and it could be a Patton, it could be, I can go into the history of all of that.
That may well be. We were on the right side of history during World War II. There's no. I don't think there's a whole lot of argument about that. Now, we can argue that there were certain decisions made that we didn't like, but that's
100%.
a smaller scale.
Go into that too.
Yeah, a smaller scale issue. But having said that, since 1958, and that's a long time ago, since 1958, I think you'd be hard-pressed to point to an example where the American military has done something in the interest of the American people in a long-term strategic sense.
I can go earlier than that, probably the Korea War. So probably
that's why I picked 58 to give you that.
I'd go a little before that, but I
think the American people are ready for a message that says this is a great nation, and we have done a lot of stupid shit, and we got to cut it out.
Okay, let's take
I think that time is coming.
I think that time is here.
Well, I don't know if it's here or coming. I'll tell you why, Nick, because I'm a believer. Listen, I grew up. I loved history, and prison is a history. I was a history nut my whole life, so we talk about that all the time. I used to sit and read encyclopedias. I mean, crazy stuff. But reading back on a lot of that, our Constitution, obviously, when I got my law degree and we had to study it, the Bill of Rights, the 10 First Amendments of the Bill of Rights, they need to be changed. We've had, there's 27 now, so after the first 10, we had 17. I mean, why hasn't there been a change to the Constitution? Just the gun laws alone. Listen, I'm all for guns. Even me, as a convicted felon, should have the right. I did my time.
Of course you should.
I should have all my rights back. I don't.
Right. The whole idea that we take
you
away
can't
from
even vote.
Well, technically not.
That's messed up.
In Florida, there's a movement, and it has not succeeded yet. But the whole idea that you would take away voting and gun possession rights from a felon, I think, is stupid, and it's spiteful and vengeful on behalf of people who believe. Vindictive on behalf of people who believe that they'll never be on the wrong side of law enforcement and have absolutely no familiarity with the other side of the argument and figure that they don't need to have any sensitivity toward their fellow man.
So how do you approach that as a presidential candidate? How do you approach something like, because we do know, let's face facts now, let's get real.
Yep.
We have more school shootings than any other country in the world, obviously. Yep. We're the third largest country in the world, too. Let's get that straight. People don't realize that. Behind China, India, and then the United States in population. But the number, even per capita, our prison system, I'll go into that. I testified in Congress on that.
Right.
Our prison system is the worst.
Right.
And you can go any metric you want to use. As an economist, you use them all.
Well, one of the most important is just the size.
The size and the number, percentage.
The number
it's just
insane.
astronomical, and the money and everything else.
Right.
When other models, the Norwegian model, the Swedish model, they all work better.
Right.
Germany's work
Agreed.
very
Agreed.
good.
Agreed.
How do you attack big issues? Well, you just said to me when we sat down, this election is about big issues. And I agree.
Right.
It's not, micro issues are really for communities or states, in my opinion.
Right.
But the big issues where the money goes and where real oppression goes, if you want to call it that.
We live in the world's most oppressive criminal justice system.
Believe me, I am a product of it.
Yeah.
And
it's the combination of a very effective criminal prosecution system, including police, which I believe is given too much deference. I think we need to do a better job of holding officers accountable as well as police agencies.
What about qualified
accountable?
immunity?
That's a big element that we have to sunset in order to hold police officers accountable. Now, qualified immunity per se is not terribly important. It affects a vanishingly small number of cases. But because police officers think it's important and because communities think it's important, it makes it important.
Well, the threshold, and I've won cases on this, Mike, in the law. I did it for 10 years. You have to prove deliberate indifference.
Right.
And that is a hard standard.
It's a very, very hard
because
standard.
In one case I did, an officer went nuts, a guard, beat a guy half to death in front of cameras and everything. And the prison system had qualified immunity, and the Bureau of Prisons had qualified immunity because it wasn't a pattern. See, the only way you can pass deliberate indifference is if the warden and the system knew that that man was bad and he was going to do that. So they got away with hiring a guy with mental illnesses.
Yeah.
Who, I think he put the person is like, I lost an eye. He couldn't talk because his jaw was, so shattered.
And just a horrible case.
Horrible case. I did the case.
Yeah.
So, and I'm like, how does it this? But the law states they have that. They had qualified immunity because they didn't know you couldn't pass.
I understand. We need for state law to sunset the federal doctrine of qualified immunity, state by state. By the way, moving federal legislation would be a huge help. And we need to replace it with state-based requirements for officers to carry their own liability insurance, just like doctors do.
And give them the money if it takes that, because they don't get paid enough either. I don't think cops get paid
That's fine. Market forces would eventually push salaries a little bit higher to overcome the burden of carrying your own liability insurance. This is how we want the system to work, is just like doctors, just like surgeons. We want the courts to be able to do what it is the courts are there to do. To hold people accountable. That's a good one. And so when you bring in an insurance company, you bring in a couple things that we don't have now. One is a third-party private sector check on the system. Because an insurance company is not going to put up with the bullshit that the unions give you, which is complete opacity regarding what information you're allowed to have. They protect the officers.
No matter what,
right? An insurance company will just price you out of the market if they don't get all the information that they want. And they will force agencies to change, and they will force officers to change. And the other thing that's important is that accountability will come financially. If you're an idiot, right, you're eventually going to have a trail of paperwork that suggests that you're not in good insurance risk. This is the way that we want the system to work. If you're a doctor, you don't cut off someone's the incorrect foot and say, well, I didn't mean it, so suck it up, buttercup. We want people to be able to seek redress in court when you believe, rightly or wrongly, but when you believe an officer or an agency has wronged you, you need to be able to seek redress in court. That's the way we want it to work. And right now, we don't have enough of that because of a number of factors, but qualified immunity is one of them. The other thing that we need in police reform is just like in school reform, we need greater agency competition. We need competition at the agency level, like at the school level, to help hold officers accountable the same way that we want to hold teachers accountable. We want to live in a world where market forces are brought to bear on police work, just like other industries, where the best officers are paid more and the mediocre are paid less and the crappy ones get fired. We want that for teachers. We want it for cops, just like for engineers and podcasters and economists and anybody else. That's the way that the system should work. But today, having competition at the agency level is very difficult. State law makes it virtually impossible for a city, for example, to hire a private sector organization that would achieve compliance with whatever the rules and regs and laws are that the city demands, right, to take over on a contractual basis policing your city. That is not something that you would put up with in any other business, including, for example, a city contracting garbage pickup.
I think they tried that in the private prison systems, and it really failed.
Well, what they tried is privatizing the prison. What I'm suggesting is you don't have to privatize the whole damn city. But you would not put up with your city saying, we have to make all the garbage men city employees. Cities have the right to contract out garbage pickup. And that's the way that it should be, which is what gives the city greater flexibility, the opportunity to save money sometimes. Sometimes they are municipal employees and sometimes they're not. But where I was a police officer, for example, the city only had two choices. They could stick with the police department that they had, for which I worked, or they could fire all of us and bring in the sheriff. Those are their only two choices. That's not a lot of competition in a lot of places in the United States, geographically speaking. Most places in the United States, you only have one choice. You've got the sheriff, and that's it.
And I'm not a believer in that, to be
So
honest.
if you had a way to say private sector organizations could get their employees qualified, trained, qualified, certified, jump through whatever hoops you want to jump through, just like any other cop, right? You should be able to compete on a contractual basis to provide that service. The same thing with school reform. We don't put up with monopolies in any other business. Why do we create them and then protect them in schoolwork?
Isn't charter schools, isn't private schools, Catholic schools, or whatever, Christian schools, whatever you want to call them, aren't they considered the competition? Isn't that where people fight for the money? Hey, we should be able to use our tax dollars for a chartered school.
Yes. No, charter schools are public sector organizations that have
they get
access to the money.
Right. So, and then they take who they want, really, the chartered school. You can't just go to a chartered school.
Well, there are different rules in different places.
Right.
Sometimes it's random and lottery, and sometimes it's who signs up, and sometimes it's who lives there. It's complicated.
Yeah, I thought it was who lived there
And charter schools
in the area
do outperform non-charter schools on the whole. That is true, which is a great thing.
Yeah,
so a little bit of competition has proven that it works. However, in most places in the United States where you don't have a lot of money, in poorer communities, you typically don't have private schools. And the reason is because all of the money that's raised for schooling in the public sector is kept in the public sector for the little monopoly for the public sector school. We don't make that available to hire whoever it is that people want to hire to educate their kids. It's all monopolized into a little public school. This is not something that you would put up with in any other business.
But has it gotten too big, Mike? Like, you know as well as I do, as a libertarian myself, I am sick and tired of paying for DEA, ATF, CIA, Homeland, all of these alphabet organizations. Why can't we have one administration or one agency, let's call it the FBI, who has a division of this, a division of that, and they can handle this? We have, and it's funny because DEA, I like drugs. What do we need the DEA for? I know why we do. I'm kind of teasing.
But we don't need the DEA.
We don't.
We don't need the DEA.
We really don't. We don't need the ATF.
We don't need the ATF. And most Americans don't realize that we don't need the FBI.
You do need one, or CIA then. You need some kind of national organization that can even come in and oversee a local police department. So you need something to kind of like investigate a local police department, let's say.
The Justice Department can investigate state organizations, and the state can investigate local organizations. We have a very powerful FDLE, Florida Department of Law Enforcement, in the state in which we're sitting now, which does conduct independent investigations of local agencies when we believe that the local agency has gone wrong.
I still think you need a one that's outside the state. Of course, because if you get a state government that's a Republican state, a very strong Republican state, or a very liberal state, whatever it is, you're going to have that agency head who is appointed by that governor that's going to be in his way. I think there has to be a national, in my view,
I understand.
And I'm anti-big government, of course.
I understand.
But there has to be one that says, wait a minute, this is zero to... That's why I'm a believer in the federal judge system. You have a federal judge appointed, and I'm a believer. As a guy who did the law for 10 years, and I just can't get my law degree. I have a law degree, but I can't be a lawyer because I'm a convicted felon.
I understand.
What has happened...
Another stupid rule.
I was going to say, they're really stepping on your throat over here.
Yeah, that's
really
a stupid rule.
That's
a bad rule.
Though.
I feel like you'd be the best lawyer.
Well, he always says to me, I hate debating you, Larry. You're such a lawyer. But because I always take I take a situation and I put myself in the other person's position.
Right.
And then I argue it that way.
Right.
If I could beat myself, then I know I got a good case.
Right.
But like if you take man, you just blew my train of thought. But
we're talking about the federal agencies, of which we need fewer.
We totally need fewer.
I'm okay with the Justice Department investigating state organizations when they go wrong. I'm all about having an accountable force on the outside. By the way, they can probably be handled in the private sector also, but never mind that. But the FBI itself, as an investigatory agency at the national level, I don't think is necessary. The vast majority of their caseload is regarding things that are illegal in every state already now.
Yeah, but then what do you do like me? I got arrested for Hobbs Act. Do you know the Hobbs Act? The Hobbs Act, to let the audience know, is interfering with interstate commerce.
Right.
So when I go from state to state, if there's not a national organization to follow me, how does one state go to another state? You need it. You need.
Well, states can communicate now.
Yeah, but I go up and down the
what
East
you
Coast.
did, no offense, Larry, but what you did was illegal in each state.
Oh, of course.
Right.
But to get me in each state, it would have been. They couldn't.
It would have been difficulter.
I wish they tried that way.
Yeah, much difficulter.
I'm glad
and states should be forming coalitions, as they do now, of course, and the FBI does coordinate those to a certain extent. So, yes, but there's no reason that has to be an investigatory organization. That can be a coalition among the states.
Yeah, but you know as well as me, Mike, what'll happen then is one governor comes in and he gets reelected, or doesn't get reelected because they have, of course, there's term limits.
Yep.
This governor's gone, and he brings in a new head, and he says, I don't want to care about that little investigation over there. I'm not putting resources there. When they caught me with the major case squad, it could have went forever because the next guy comes in, they got one mission. And I get it because who really didn't like me, to let you guys know this, was the insurance companies.
Right.
I didn't hurt people. But the insurance company said, wait a minute, there's somebody killing us here.
You and I have both met, probably for different reasons, I'm going to guess. You and I have both met insurance investigators.
I taught them. I went to Wisconsin. And
many of them are quite sophisticated.
Very sophisticated.
Very sophisticated. Now, I'm sure that they have their contingency of lazy sacks like any other police agency. Yeah. But they're very good at what they do. And they work closely with state-based organizations, as you know. I just don't think that the FBI needs to be constituted the way it is. And I don't think that you're going to argue that the FBI's decision-making process regarding who they go after in the federal government is clean as a whistle, 100%. Free of political influence, is something that the American people trust anymore, even.
I mean, they tried to set it up that way with a 10-year, like the head of the FBI is appointed for 10 years.
Right.
And that's done for the reason over multiple
We understand that.
administration.
We understand that. But having said that, the FBI has proven that it is not a trustworthy organization. It's too political.
I don't think any of them are, though. I hate to be like that.
Agreed.
I'm not a crime lover. Believe me, I should be the head of an organization. Yeah. I'll catch the people who need to be caught.
I agree. But being national, being in Washington, it is just absolutely predisposed to having a political bent. Remember, the FBI, you and I are the same age. You and I both know that the FBI doesn't have a golden age to which we would point and say, we want the FBI to be like they were back in those
Hoover?
days.
No.
Exactly. And so my point is, I think the FBI has structural problems. It's not a matter of, well, Hoover was the bad guy, so we brought in. We brought in. I think that the way that it's set up.
I'm going to get off law enforcement because I want to get on a couple of topics with you.
Yes, sir.
Let's get back to Congress.
Yeah.
I'm not even going to go into the corruption I believe is in Congress, because how does a person make $170,000 a year, have 2 residents, and all of them are worth $5 million or more after X amount of years? If there's not funny business
and then
going
30
on
years later, he's the president of the United States shuffling on and off of Air Force One with a couple million in the bank.
A couple.
And
I wish I had a couple million like he had a couple
house
million.
worth a few $1 million in Rehoboth. Yeah.
You know that.
I get it.
But that goes for all of them. I can go to Chuck Schumer. I can go to Nancy Pelosi. I can go, Chuck Schumer. I can go to Kevin McCarthy. I can go to Mitch McConnell. They're all corrupt. I really believe that.
No, I think you're right. It's a matter of shades of gray in some cases.
And I often used to say, as a man who corrupted people, and I'm never proud of what I did, but I was who I was. I used to say, listen, I want you to get in office. I'll help you get in office. Mm-hmm. All I wanted always, and I got it, was access. Mm-hmm. Hear me out.
Right.
Hear me out. I'll help you, but hear me out, because I'm not a crazy man. I might have some good opinions. That's what I think access should be, or whatever.
You were a crazy man.
Well, agreed. And Nicholas and I have to give you a little pushback here on 2 things. Number one, you'll always have access to me without giving me any money.
There you go. Man, I love that.
But it's because you are crazy. It's not because you're not crazy. It's because you're crazy like a fox. It's because you get the difference between yourself and the way the politicians work, but also the difference in yourself and how the government works. Those are important differences. You've been around the block and you've seen the way that things shouldn't work.
You should. Here's my. I almost like try to say I want to. When we talked values earlier, I think I got it wrong, and I'll say why I think I got it wrong. People equate values to whether it's a religious value.
It's a loaded term, isn't it?
Yes, because I don't believe it should be that. My values of whatever I want to do privately, sexually, or drug-wise, people say, you got no values, you do drugs, or you got no values, you're in an orgy. I'm just giving statements.
Exactly.
What does that have to do with my values of I want this country to be good, I want my streets to be clean, I want my roads to be nice,
right.
I want my kids to get a good education,
and what I mean,
my grandkids to grow up in a world.
Agreed. And what I mean is that those are relatively small things.
My grandchild getting good education is a relatively small thing?
Yes. Let me get bigger.
Wow.
Let me get bigger.
Good.
I don't care what it is you think is a good education for your grandchild. What I want is for you to decide what is a good education for your grandchild. It's okay for you and I to disagree.
They say you
As a
can
matter
do that,
of fact,
but they say you can do that, Mike, with homeschooling and all that.
Yeah, well, then that's fine. I sensed in your voice a little bit of dismissiveness regarding Nicholas's Catholic school education, for example.
I had when I was abused.
Yeah, I understand that, and I appreciate that. However, I want the Catholic, I want the Archdiocese of Miami to be able to compete with public schools for access to public funding, not because I think that Catholic schools are terrific, and I'm sure that Nicholas's education was terrific, and I myself have
He's going to chime in.
From time to time sent one of my kids to a Catholic school because given the situation I was in at the moment, geographically and financially, it was a good choice for me. But that's not what's important. What's important is that it's my choice. In other words, I don't want to have to argue with someone about whether Catholic schools are a good education or a good idea or not. It's none of your fucking business. What is your business is that you should be supporting my right to educate my kids the way that I think is the best way to do it. That's a bigger value.
But does it come my opinion when it's my money being used to go to your school?
That's the system we have now. Now your money goes to a public school that is run by other people. But if you wanted to go
to to a Catholic school as well, if you're saying all money should, like when you pool money, if you take a neighborhood like this size, let's just take Palm Bay, it's 125,000 people.
Right.
If you take all the money in Palm Bay and say, let's divvy it up to the school system, let's divvy it up to Catholic school system, let's give it up. Why does my mother pay tax to a school? She obviously has nobody in school. She hasn't had anybody in school many years.
Well, that is an important question. Well, we can debate that too.
Right.
But if let's say,
but you said it.
Let's set that aside for just a moment and say that we agree, even though we probably don't. Let's say we agree that the public money is a good idea for schools, and that we need to tax everybody to send all the kids to school. Okay. So we've decided that. Now, who should decide what kind of education your kid should have? Who should decide? Who should decide what kind of education your kid should have? Your grandchild, in your case, or in my case?
It should be the parents.
Bingo.
Right.
Just let's stop there. Let's not leave that behind so quick.
Okay.
What school should your grandchild attend?
Well, if I could afford it, let's just say Larry.
No. What are you talking about? We've already collected the money. You and I just agreed. It wasn't. Play the tape back. Can you play the tape back, Nicholas? We agreed not 90 seconds ago that we were going to collect money to send the kids to schools.
Okay.
Then we agreed that it ought to be up to his family to decide what school they ought to go to, what education they should get.
So are we saying in the beginning of the year, everyone gets a tax form that they want to choose?
Yeah, see, I don't know how you're doing that.
How would
you're
you do
just
that?
But I can tell you how.
We're doing that now, Mike. We are putting out money to schools. Each school is graded, at least in this area, an A school, B school,
only
C
the public
school, D
schools,
right?
And they all have monopolies over the little area.
Yes, but why should the public be putting money towards a Catholic school?
Why should the public be putting money toward a public school?
Because it's not teaching a religion that I don't want my son or daughter to to
Wrong,
maybe done.
wrong.
Why? Wait,
wrong.
it is? It is teaching
First
religion?
of all, absolutely.
Oh, you think public school teaches religion?
You think public school doesn't teach religion?
Yes.
When's the last time you were in a public school, Larry?
I speak at them once a year, twice a year, some colleges
Well, I
as well.
used to teach in them, and I can tell you damn well that they teach religion in public school.
Well, are they teaching? Wait, is it in the curriculum or is it in the teacher?
It's in the curriculum.
Teaching religion?
What's
Is it
your
teaching
definition
about-
of religion?
I know where you're going with that. That's very
And
good.
the reason you know where I'm going is because you know I'm right. You know that when you lock a bunch of adults and a bunch of kids into a room for 5 hours a day, for 200 days a year, those people are going to impart values. I'm not saying that they're bad values. I'm not saying it's a bad idea. I'm not even saying I have a problem with it. All I'm saying is you have hired those people to convey a sense of education and values, of religion,
Can't
of
stand
what's
the word
right
values,
and wrong.
'cause I don't believe that.
You have hired a group of people to educate your kid,
Yes.
whatever that means to you.
Right. But with the curriculum, they are supposed to follow.
Supposed by whom, Larry?
By the Department of Education brings down a curriculum,
and
correct?
you believe the Department of Education is who?
I'm not talking federally. I'm talking
is who-
state or local.
Okay.
School board.
Okay, the school board. The school board, you believe, should represent everybody in the community as far as how they educate their
It
kids.
does by having an elected official. The only way to do that, you have, in this county, you have 5 elected school board officials.
And if other families disagree,
well, then you can move to another district if you'd like.
Larry,
if
that's
that-
really what you're saying.
People
No,
is
what
that
I'm
if-
trying to say is you can't. You're saying it.
You wouldn't give me this argument about Giant and Safeway and
They're private entities.
darn right they are. You wouldn't give me this argument about any other industry, any other business, any other aspect of your life. But for some reason, you believe that if your local education provider is somebody you don't like, that you should pack up your family and move to another county.
Mike, wait a minute. I'm not even saying that. Not only is that fact, people move to certain areas because the schools are good. You know that.
But a lot of
I've
people
done it.
can't-
Bingo.
And
So
you
you're
say it's a
telling
good
me-
idea, and I'm saying it's a shitty idea.
Well, why is it a shitty idea? How else are you going to... Okay, if you go... Let's just go even back to the
I was
question.
not-
If you're going to put up money in a collective way, how do you divvy that money up in a way that represents the whole, not a section? Do you want a school? Okay, I am anti.
You
I'm
assign
an
it to the
agnostic.
child.
Okay, I'm an agnostic, which
Right.
means I believe in something. I don't know what I believe. I've
Whatever,
been them
you
all.
do you.
Right. So if I was in an area that the school system was just teaching a Muslim faith or Christian faith or a Jewish faith, I don't want my child in that school, so to speak.
Well, that's like saying that like everyone needs full insurance. Not everyone can have full car insurance. Like I had to go to my private Catholic school because I physically could not go anywhere else because of exactly where I lived. And my parents just couldn't pick up and move me somewhere just to go to another school. I had to go to that school.
Or go to the public school.
Which was I couldn't go to the
had to
public
go.
school.
They had
Oh,
to pay
because
for
it was,
it.
I wasn't in the district.
That's a unique circumstance.
You know, I wasn't in the district.
Okay.
This is a good topic because people want to know where you lie.
But you
I am
asked an
all
important
for
question
you.
to which you apparently don't want the answer.
want it.
Okay. The question you answered is how are you going to divvy up the money?
Right.
This is not a difficult question. This is not a difficult question. Let's all take a deep breath. Like any other service, it should follow the person who is acquiring, who is paying for, who is buying that service. So each child should be, look, in the state of Florida, it's something like $14,000 a head, which is insane, and that's a whole nother topic. But whatever.
Incarceration, $28,000 a head. Let's get to that one.
What's that?
Incarceration is $28,000 a person to $30,000.
Yeah, it's insane.
You need
But
water? Anybody need anything?
let's set that problem aside for just a moment. If each child, if for each child we are spending $14,000, why is it, I ask rhetorically, because economically speaking, there is no good argument. Why are we deciding that the $14,000 for that child and for every other child has to go to the same provider? Why is it that the family cannot decide where they want their kid to go, and that $14,000 should go to that school. The reason you've got only shitty schools in poor neighborhoods, where, parenthetically, Larry, is really where it matters. We're not really having a discussion about, oh, we feel so bad for wealthy families. This is really not what this is about, right?
100%.
Right. Is you know, as much as I feel bad for my rich friends, this is really about those places where the kids have no choice and where it really matters. There are no private schools. You know, the Archdiocese of Miami does not have a Catholic high school in Tamarack. It just, you know, in Lauderhill, it just doesn't exist. And they cannot compete there because all of the money is kept to the public school. Now, it's all kept to the public school, you know, in wealthy communities too. But there are enough people in the wealthy communities to send their kids to Cardinal Gibbons.
Or Pines.
You know about
Heaven
help us.
Yeah.
Yeah, my school went out of business. All the school,
what
all
you're
the
really
private
saying,
schools
I want to
around
get
me
it
went
so
out of
I
business.
want a couple of other topics. I want to keep them moving on topics because you're very educated. And you're really educating my audience, and I would thank you for that. But so what you're really just saying in education and probably everything is you just want to see more competition.
Exactly.
Period.
Exactly.
How do you get competition? You can't make the business come to your area. Do you get what I'm saying?
That's true, but the Archdiocese of Miami, I may be struck down here in your studio, but
you won't. Nobody ever does. Everybody is left.
All right. Well, as a Lutheran and a Calvinist, I have every respect for the profit motivation of the Archdiocese of Miami. They have proven themselves time and again to be very efficient business persons. And if you were to make $14,000 a head available for every kid in the middle of Broward County, trust me when I say this, not 24 months would go by before you'd have another Catholic school.
You're trying to say if they just open up the funding of all the money that goes there.
Yep.
Now, do you think...
Now, the Lutherans, I can say this, being one, they're a little slower on the draw. They've only got a couple of schools in Broward County and probably wouldn't open another one.
I'm just...
But importantly,
I'm so away from...
non-sectarian schools would
right.
be developed.
Would you give the money to an atheist school?
A school that held up its hand and said they were atheists?
Yes.
Of course, but that's not up to me. If none of the parents liked it, if no kids went there, then they're not getting any money.
No, that's what I'm asking.
Yes.
Because I'm not one that believes, again, I believe a parent or a person should have the say of where their money goes. It's almost like me saying, Larry, you pay taxes. You pay a lot of taxes.
Yeah.
I don't have a say, obviously. Okay, I'd like money to go to this edge. Because if you have no kids, or if you're a person who never had kids, you say, why have I been paying?
Well, that is an interesting question.
It is a very interesting question. And all the elderly people and all the people who have no more. Now, do younger people who work, should they have? And then if they don't have the money to, who funds it? Again, we're at such a level in education where we're not doing well. I mean, I don't know a lot of the answers. Obviously, you as a presidential candidate, I hope you got a lot more than me, and I'm sure you do. And that's why, even to come to the table, you know, I think there's smarter people than both of us who have great ideas. Economists like yourself that are just in this field. I just think our colleges are woke. You know, I mean, to the point that they don't let a hard right Republican and a liberal. I watched a great show I don't know if you know who Neil deGrasse Tyson is.
Sure.
What a smart astrophysicist.
Yeah.
We watch a lot of him, and they were talking about stuff. And there was another person who said they watched a debate, and Bill Maher actually said it. He was talking with Joe Rogan, and they were talking about he remembers when they went to college, a hard right Republican debated Barney Frank.
Those are the days.
Left. He goes, and I would have never had that opportunity to hear that today because colleges won't let the hard right Republican.
Absolutely
and that's
not.
wrong.
Of course it's wrong.
That's fact. That is a fact.
And that is
all
a
the
fact.
videos
That's
I
a-
see on any college anymore. Like, you don't see college parties anymore. You don't see like their campus. All you see is literally them fighting in the fields. Like,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
all you
And
see.
that
them
goes for
doing
elected
is, like,
politicians, and it
someone
goes
screaming
for-
at somebody else.
Absolutely,
Yes.
you're absolutely right, and it goes for people in your field, the Ben Shapiros of the world,
Right.
Those guys get routinely run off of campuses.
Oh,
And
they
it's
can't
wrong.
come.
Of course, it's wrong.
You know,
and that's not to express any opinion about
I've
what it
been
is
run
they're
off.
saying.
I've been run off because I'm anti-religion.
Okay, but
I'm
Nicholas,
also an ex-con.
Nicholas, back me up. Keeping Larry off of campus. Maybe that's a
the
good idea.
safest thing.
Maybe that's
You know,
where we
you're
draw the
making me
line.
out
Now
sound
you've
like I'm
gone
some
too far.
He crashed.
Now you've gone too
He
far.
crashed a pizza party the other day at a skating rink.
Oh,
It
I
didn't
did.
Go so well.
We went down to do videos down in Vero Beach, but that's another story. Education, you just want more competition. Can I get that as a presidential candidate?
And the way that
how do you do that? Would you abolish the federal education department?
Oh, 100%. Now,
I said that.
Remember
same
that
thing.
most of what the Department of Education does at the federal level is it takes your money and gives it back to the states. That's
the state just wants to give it to, right?
And you have with strings attached. So they tax, the federal government taxes you, gives some of it to the Department of Education, and it gives it back to you with strings attached. Just let that sink in. As a matter of ethics, like, why do you need the federal government making decisions for you regarding how you spend your money when you could have spent your money yourself? Or, as we were just discussing, you could have spent it at the local level through your own school board, through your own local property taxes. Why do you need the federal government to boss your state around, or to boss your county around, or to boss around your school board? That's a weird thing. Never mind the fact that they suck at it. Let's set that aside.
Let me get that just to end on education.
Yeah.
I'm getting to the idea with you that you definitely want less federal government.
Absolutely.
Obviously, there's a lot of departments. So we're going to transition into the next part of this.
Sure.
Defense spending.
Yeah.
And what's going on in the world today. Because
Yeah.
this is, I think, the big issue we talk. You said there's
Agreed.
big issues that Larry is going to, and you're right. Maybe not me at my age, but my kids and my grandkids, I think, have a lot of big issues coming up that are going to change the world. I really believe it.
I agree.
Now, you and I are old enough to remember why things happened.
Yeah.
Why we needed to be in a war, if you want to call it. I hate to say needed. We needed maybe a military base in this area to keep peace because of oil movements in the Kuwait War. You remember 92?
Yep.
Listen, everybody knew, this is about, go and take over. No, it's not. It made it because the gas was going to be $10 a gallon if we let
Iraq take over Kuwait. Right.
And Bush, in my mind, first George Bush, did the right thing. Get in there, kick them the hell out. Now go. Let Iraq and Iran do their war.
Right.
Sunni, Shia.
Right.
Let them
Right.
fight and keep the balance.
And for the context for the youngsters, Iraq had invaded Kuwait. They were taking over the oil fields. The United States threw Iraq out of Kuwait. The United States military had the option of going all the way to Baghdad and overthrowing the government and decided not to. That was a sign of restraint that you would not see since then, I think, is what
Very good.
would
And
agree on.
my biggest problem with all wars, and I had some Ukrainian experts on about the Ukraine war, and I said, one of my biggest problems. Listen, I'm all for humanitarian, and you only see one part or the other. We all know that. I remember back in '92. I was dumbfounded when I saw the amount of technology with bombs going down. It
was amazing.
Shoots. We never knew all that existed, if you remember.
Not until CNN showed us in
Unbelievable.
1991, 92.
Literally bombs going into a pipe, blowing up bunker bomb. It was just amazing. And I said, imagine what they have today. But
yeah.
But I also said in that
They're watching us right now. Exactly.
They're watching me. I can guarantee that.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
have cameras and stuff. They tapped in.
Well, in fairness, I would support that. I think someoone's got to keep their eye on you. But we digress. We digress.
We do.
The Alexa is always on. So
Yeah, I
just
know.
put
We
it
have
that
all
way.
this technology and it's
The
killing
Alexa
me.
is always on.
But and I know mother government, and I'm not a believer in the mother government. I'm a believer in my
course
liberties.
not. Of course not.
Libertarian.
Of course.
But getting back into the Defense Department, what is going on, and as I said, we need to start charging countries. This country, if we're in any conflict, I don't care what it is. I don't care if it's the Israeli, Palestine contra, or Hamas in Israel, or Ukraine and Russia, whatever. Why are American people funding? Now, there's a lot of national political implications in everything. Obviously, world power balance, nuclear war, really, it can get deep. And you and I know that because we're of the age where we talk about it. We didn't have...
And we've seen it develop.
And we have seen it develop, from NATO to everything.
Yep.
So my point would be, how do we get to the point where just, okay, listen, we're going to help you. It's business now. It's business. Israel, you need the Iron Dome? Gotcha.
Yeah.
It's costing you this. We're going to tack on 10%. We're going to make money.
Right.
When we went into Kuwait and took the oil fields, I have no idea why we didn't just take over all the oil until we paid us back for what we get. We liberated Kuwait.
Right.
Pay us back. Give us this oil for 10 years or whatever it's going to cost. Figure numbers and let's do it.
Right.
Why aren't we doing this?
I think, first of all, I agree with your attitude that we should not be funding other nations, particularly when it comes to their strategic...
they're not paying us back?
No.
Especially...
See that?
I know.
That's a young... Well, you know why I like...
Really?
And I have a bunch of young people work for me, my editors, all that.
Exactly.
People. And, I'm the old man, but I love listening to their arguments to me.
Right.
And every one of them, I had to sit back and say, because you know how we are as older guys.
Right.
He's right. Most of the time, they're right. First of all, they don't know because they don't watch national CNN.
Well, and the government doesn't want you to know all kinds of things.
Exactly. And they know
I thought they were helping us in some type of way.
Yeah. Well,
we should be taking their natural resources.
That is an argument to be had about whether or not they're helping us. But
go ahead on
to
that.
your point.
Tell my audience, because I have a young audience, and they want to know what a president. And believe me, more of my audience is probably libertarian than you'd think.
Yeah. Well, let's keep it to the three places where we're risking a world war right now. One at a time, and we'll pick up the pace.
No, for you.
I
sit all day
that.
with you.
I understand.
Or you could come back.
We have an important event to support a friend of ours, Josh Lavka, is running for the State House next year.
Okay,
and we have a little fundraiser for him in a couple hours in Broward County. So we're going to support him. Let's talk real quick, because I think that the specific examples are sort of interesting. Let's talk about China real quick. The big picture, first of all, the big picture here is that the Chinese economy will eventually fall apart. It's just starting over the last couple of years. The thing that we should be afraid of with regard to China is that it is so hell-bent on projecting its own military hegemony and control over Asia, in particular, the entire Pacific and Taiwan, Africa as well, but particularly in Asia, that I worry that when over the next decade and two, that it feels power slipping from its fingers because its economy is so bad that it will lash out in ways that are less reasonable and restrained than it has up until now.
When were you there last, Mike? Have you been to China?
Yes, I've been to China.
And when was your last time? I've been with a couple.
It's been a while. I haven't been to China in 20 years.
And they said, Larry, you have no idea how advanced their roads and airports and everything are. So I don't know their economy. Like, obviously, you're an economist. But
the problem is that they have dumped trillions of dollars into 20th century style investments. They have overbuilt housing that is now empty. They have overbuilt office space that is now empty. And they have invested into their Belt and Road Initiative, what people abbreviate as BRI, which is to say ports, railroad, airports around the world in order to achieve some interoperability with the Chinese economy. And they have forced local governments to finance this themselves largely. And now we have many, many governments around the Pacific Rim and in Africa that are facing debt problems that they cannot afford. And because these are 20th century style investments, they may not pay off in all of the ways that the Chinese government thought that they would in the 21st century. And so we're all very afraid that the next debt crisis is not only going to be bad for a lot of developing countries, but is going to be extremely bad for Chinese finances. And for that reason, we're afraid about what's going to happen to the Chinese economy. I mean, personally, I don't have an axe to grind with the Chinese economy. On some level, they're so stupid the way they run their economy that.
But why? Because they seem to own all the assets of the United States. Go to New York.
Well, they have made some good investments in treasury bonds, but they have made tremendous investments in bad, as I say, 20th century style infrastructure investments around the world. Here's the problem. The Chinese government has stated that one of its long-term strategic objectives is to reunify with Taiwan. The United States government has said for 30 years, for 40 years, that we believe that Taiwan should remain independent, but we're not going to say what we would do about it. This is what we call strategic ambiguity. And we have led people to believe that if you invest in Taiwan, particularly in technology, particularly in chips, that you will, we're virtually guaranteeing, we don't say this out loud, we don't write it down certainly, but we're virtually guaranteeing that we will defend Taiwan. You are not going to be reunified with the mainland. And this is why so much technological investment has been made in Taiwan.
The most chips in the world are made there.
Most of the high-end chips, which is the real problem, which we now believe we're going to need for our artificial intelligence infrastructure in the future. So we have created this almost self-fulfilling prophecy where we have said that, you know, we're going to make sure Taiwan is protected. The investment goes in, and now we feel like we have to protect Taiwan because we're afraid of what happens if the Chinese
take over China.
Takes over. We're afraid that what will happen to Taiwan will be what happened to Hong Kong, for example, whose economy is faltering because of it. We need to send a clear message that if you want to invest in a place where the Defense Department of the United States government will back you up, come hell or high water, then can I interest you in Milwaukee? Because that is a place that we will back up, and Taiwan is not. We have to unwind this so that we get out of this self-fulfilling prophecy where we feel like we have to back it up because we've indicated that we would.
I think something happened with Intel. I was reading some articles on Intel trying to put massive, with government backing, investments in chip making because of what happened.
Yes,
so
and now
that's
right. Now the United States government feels like we have to subsidize the development of chips in the United States because we have effectively subsidized it going into Taiwan.
Okay.
So we're trying to unwind that.
At this point, we have a leader, and again, I don't bash too many leaders, it's still our president, who's really not with it today. He does not belong to be president. And I don't care.
He's a good half dozen years beyond his sell-by date.
Yeah, a good half dozen. And we have another guy trying to get in office who's just got so much baggage that, I mean, I met him 5 times, and he's baggage out the yin. So
yeah. Yes.
How do we get a level-headed man, a person like yourself, who, meeting you, researching you, I'm so glad you came, is how do we get more of you involved? Because we know it's money. I mean, but let's just say somehow Elon Musk gives you $100 billion. He's worth $200 billion.
Right.
Gives you $100 billion.
Right.
I still don't think the money, I don't think it could work in your favor to get that kind of. I don't like to be a party pooper because I really believe in you. I really am.
I appreciate that. Thank you for the encouragement.
And I'll support it until I die because I really believe this is the last of my life.
Well, remember, you can only give me $2,900.
Was that it? Okay.
Yeah, okay. But look, people like a good story, and people are ready to hear the story that they need to stop wasting their vote and vote their values because people are increasingly frustrated with their government.
Can you stop 1 second and look at him? How do you get him?
Yeah.
No, and I mean,
I know it. I know it.
I am not trying to be an asshole here.
Yeah.
This is the hard sell.
Yeah.
We talk politics. He changes my mind. And the young people I'm with, and they are super smart.
Yeah.
Don't think they're not.
No.
How do you change him to even vote?
I already know that Nicholas is the brains behind this operation.
He don't even want to vote.
Nicholas understands.
No, he don't vote. He won't vote.
I understand. Nicholas understands that his future rides on him being able to live his life by his own standards.
Yeah.
He knows that he wants to live
to
a
survive.
life that is described by himself, that he does not need a government making decisions for him. Increasingly, however, you have a government that is not only hell-bent on making decisions for you, but is hell-bent on the idea that if you should argue even with the government having the power to make decisions for you, that government will censor you. That government will take away your right to express yourself on whatever platform you're interested in using.
You know what's a little messed up that I just put two and two together? I have more of an opinion on like YouTube censoring me than I do like the actual government censoring me. I have more of an opinion.
I love honesty.
Now,
on
understand.
That's
Instagram
honesty.
censoring what I'm posting,
Yep.
Twitter censoring what I'm posting, and YouTube censoring.
Yeah, well, you
I
should.
don't think about.
You should.
The
But
government.
here's the
But
missing piece.
The government was dabbling into Twitter, and that's when I was like, whoa.
See?
Hold on.
I
That's where
understand.
you're drawing a line for
Now,
me.
Nicholas, understand that the government wasn't dabbling in Twitter. The government was bossing Twitter around.
I didn't want to come out and say it.
Okay,
but,
well,
you
the
know.
government is dabbling with the others,
Yeah.
but absolutely full on
They were controlling Twitter. That is for
controlling
sure.
Twitter.
They're in court for it.
And
Like,
this
they're
is
literally-
why CNN is running down Elon Musk,
Yeah. Because
CNN is a mouthpiece for the Democratic Party.
And that's when I got into it, where I was like, "Hold on, guys,
Right.
you're messing with
If you
the things
want
I
to
like."
express yourself for the rest of your life, if you want to live in an environment in which you can decide how to raise your kids, how to educate them, right? Without being censored, without being overtaxed, certainly. But if you want the simple dignity of being represented by a foreign policy that aligns with your values, you can no longer support one of the two parties in power. That's a problem. So your choice is this. You can just become apolitical, or you can look for a candidate that represents your values and is going to try to join you in imposing on those other parties your values and to threaten to undermine their duopoly, to undermine their control of the political system. This is what it is that we're fighting for now, is to change the way American politics runs. We don't have $100 billion, but we do have a very, very good story. And remember, when Robert Kennedy Jr., damned right, when Robert Kennedy Jr. starts his independent campaign and takes votes away from Joe Biden, the left-hand side of the American political spectrum is going to panic, as they should, because the idea of Joe Biden just riding into the White House is no longer going to look so obvious. CNN and MSNBC are going to be looking for a story. All of the left-hand side podcasters are going to be looking for a story. How do we undermine Donald Trump becoming president? And all of those people believe, correctly or incorrectly, all of those people believe that the Libertarian Party draws people away from Republicans. They are going to be all over my campaign like white on rice. We are going to get so much access on MSNBC and CNN, you're going to be sick of watching me.
No, we won't. I'm going to get you on a couple of great
I was about to
podcasts. I just thinking.
Well, thanks,
Let me explain.
thanks in
It's
advance
refreshing.
for that.
It's refreshing.
But what Nick says, and I look at Nick as he's my litmus test.
Yeah.
Because he's educated.
Right.
He's smart. He's a street smart kid.
Yeah,
Smart.
right.
He loves
right.
what he does. He's into the tech stuff.
Yep.
And the kids are. And he runs kids that are younger than him. So
Yeah,
it's
I
kind
get
of
it.
weird to me. But
Right.
Nick says to me, and he'll tell you, why should I vote? I don't care about voting.
Yeah.
He goes, I won't vote. I go, why, Nick? I tried.
It feels like it doesn't matter.
Well,
The lines are too long.
Listen to this. This is legit stuff to think about. Because I used to get mad until I grabbed myself and said, stop getting mad. Listen, Larry.
Right. Right.
He says, Larry, you tell me the stories I used to buy and own politicians. All true. Why should I vote? My vote does not matter when I see this corporation puts $100 million into lobbyists.
Yep.
And they get their way. Every time.
Yeah.
He fouls just enough to not like the system and say, fuck it.
Right.
Why? Now, he is just one of millions.
Right.
how do we change Nick? I want to be on your freaking prison system when you become president. So
Right.
I'll run your damn BOP.
Yes.
Why in the world how do you, as a obviously intelligent man, and this is what we need. We need a man, your experience, who's not not scared of the kids,
Right.
not scared
Right.
of technology,
Right. Right.
And a way to talk to them where they're saying, fuck, they like me. Listen, I have a
I get
very,
it.
very big following of young people. Do
I
you
get
know
it.
why?
Because you tell the truth.
They say, man, Larry, you don't give a fuck. You tell it like it is, the real deal. You don't give a shit. And I don't. I'm at that point in my life. I
get
think,
that.
and you too.
Yes.
With the experience of being a cop and an economist.
You and I are not waiting to pass out our resume to get another job.
No, shit. And they look at me and say, man, he's too old. Now, how do you...
Your age is not your biggest problem. You're crazy.
That's
your problem.
No, that's my asset.
That's your asset.
How do you right now convince Nick to vote
Yeah.
and why he should vote for you? Give him a pitch.
This is your last
Nick,
chance.
here's a pitch.
Nicholas, this is your last chance. The American government is going off the rails. And this is something that you know deep inside of you, that the federal government is going off the rails, and so is the state government. Not only does it not reflect your values, but it's running against your ability to lead your life the way that you want to. And not just in terms of taking your resources, but undermining your ability to decide whether or not you should have a vaccine, right? To decide how to raise your kids, to decide whether or not your business can run the next time that we have some sort of a pandemic. Very comfortable making decisions for you. We can change all that, but we need to impose on the system the idea that there is an outside force, that there is a group that represents the way the government was intended to be run. The idea of having a constitutional democracy in the United States and force people to take that into consideration from now on. Ours is a good story that I think people are going to want to hear, that they're going to enjoy hearing. You know that your values better align with mine and my party than they do with the Republican or the Democratic Party. But you also know that your values are pointed toward the future of America and not the way that it has worked up until now. So I say, vote for that future, vote for your values and the way that you want it to work. And that's the way that we are going to gain momentum in our campaign. And it's going to wake people up to the idea that this is a force that can play a real role. We are playing to win. We are not playing to make some noise and be cute and be an asterisk. We are playing to actually disrupt the way American politics works.
I love that.
I
love that.
We're going to make
Now,
some
but
changes.
tell him your
I like that
concerns
part.
and be honest. Tell him your concerns.
First,
I have my. He knows mine.
Before we get into that, I
Now,
wanna
and
switch
we
the
know we've
topic a
only
little
got
bit.
4 minutes. Yeah.
I wanna
So
switch
go.
the
Well, we got
really
7
quick
minutes. Give me
on-
7, will you?
All right, we got 7.
On the U.S. dollar, where crypto's going,
Yep.
and then that new government money that
Yeah,
I've been
yeah.
hearing about.
Yeah, yeah.
You heard about the new
Of course.
No, I don't-
online government currency?
I will explain.
What are
Yeah.
you talking about?
I will explain.
There's an online government currency. That's
Tell
being
tell
pushed.
Larry to listen.
Listen, Larry.
Okay.
Listen, Larry.
Look, in the next few years, I don't know whether it's 5 or 15, but in the next few years, we're going to reach an inflection point in the way our economy works, where a greater proportion of our economy is going to be controlled through blockchain technology. This is going to be a huge advantage for us because things are going to work smarter, more efficiently, more effectively. We'll better be able to conduct transactions, keep track of material, keep track of assets, keep track of inventories, keep track of our medical records in a way that protects our privacy. All of these things are going to be absolutely fantastic. It's going to make our lives better. That is going to require a new, at least one, and hopefully probably many cryptocurrencies to work really well on blockchain technology in conjunction with all of that. We don't know whether the emerging winner is going to be Ethereum, Bitcoin, or another one, right?
Cardano.
But I do know, having been an economist for several thousand years now, watching industries develop, businesses come and go, that we need for this business to evolve without the government deciding who the winners and who the losers are.
I was
going
going to say, because what happens when they shut off that I can't buy too many snacks?
Right.
Or,
We need the government out of it.
Yeah.
This is what's really critical. Now, your concern is absolutely spot on, and that is the Federal Reserve System is now considering issuing its own cryptocurrency.
Yeah, I don't want that.
And it would run on its own blockchain, and it would have rules that would make it better for itself than for Ethereum or Bitcoin, for example.
Yeah.
And they would, in all likelihood, run out Bitcoin. They would run out Ethereum. They would cram out private sector digital currencies from being able to compete effectively in the development of the economy in the future and advantage its own currency. Now, this is a problem, A, for what we just discussed, which is we need this economy to develop as efficiently and as high-tech as possible in a way that helps us the most. But B, and you were getting to this with your snack problem, I'm sorry to hear that, that the government, that the Federal Reserve System would be able to collect not only metadata, but actual data on every single transaction.
Everything, yeah.
And there is absolutely no reason to believe that they would not turn that data over to the Treasury Department, to the Justice Department, to any other department.
Or like the next shutdown we have for the vaccine, or you didn't get the vaccine, so you can't go buy gas now. Like,
well, that's exactly right.
Like,
Speaking of Canada, which you need to talk to Larry about Canada after I leave.
Didn't they take all their guns?
They shut down their ability to buy gas because they were.
Oh, they did?
Yes. If you were protesting the government's vaccine mandate, they shut down your ability to use your gas card.
How'd they? Oh, a gas card?
Mm-hmm.
Really?
Get it?
I had no idea that, but
get it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Get it? And that's
they couldn't use cash.
You could have. You got it?
No.
Well, there you go. It's not so easy then, is it?
Well, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's a real problem. And this is, Canada 2021. Think about the United States 2031, where the Federal Reserve can control a huge proportion of transactions because they're electronic, and eventually all transactions. The privacy concerns, the censorship concerns, the government control, and intruding into your personal liberty, huge. And just as huge, in my view, is perverting the way that these technologies develop in making our economy more efficient. So for this reason, we need to keep the Federal Reserve out of it. There's also other reasons.
You have to keep them out. I had Cardano. I made a lot of money. I understand the blockchain. I had guys who invented blockchain. The guy who invented Cardano was also one of the founders of Ethereum.
Yeah.
And, I had him on here, and I had one of his guys on here. And understanding the blockchain, learning meta worlds, because I'm in that now. We're developing games for our company and stuff like that. We're actually developing our own server with the GTA and all that kind of stuff.
Very cool. Good for you.
But the understanding it, you can't have the government in that. That's the whole.
No.
You said it, because in the blockchain,
say,
you're going to be able to put your title, your house title, your medical records. People don't understand the depth.
Right.
We're not going to get into that now.
No.
I want you to give. You got a few minutes. First of all, I want to thank you.
Yeah, we only got 2 minutes.
Okay, I want to thank you for coming on. I really do.
I want to
Mike.
thank you for letting me join you
And
today.
you're welcome back. Please, I'll give you my cell. We'll talk. We'll do whatever you need. I can help in any way I can.
Right.
And I'd like you to pitch to my audience why they need, right now, to vote for Mike during this presidential election. Please, go ahead.
I think
Mike is yours.
Well, I appreciate that. I think that people in your audience will be gratified to know that my website is not nearly as boring as I am. I think that if they go to,
You're not boring at all.
I appreciate that, and I've lied to you in ways to make you feel good too. I think if you go to goldnewdeal.org. Okay. Now you can go to MikeTermaat.com, but you'd have to spell Termaat correctly. It's got 2 A's in it. That's
and a space.
That's pretty tricky. There's not a space in the website,
tricky.
but
it was tricky.
Yeah, you can go to
He gave it to
MikeTermaat.com.
me.
But if you go to goldnewdeal.org,
We'll put the links.
goldnewdeal.org. They're 2 very different websites. They link back and forth, as you might imagine. But here's the deal: in goldnewdeal.org, you're going to see proposals for public policy to change the fundamental relationship between us and our government. We believe that we stepped off the curb in a very bad direction with Franklin Roosevelt's original New Deal back in the 30s. We want to unwind that and set in motion a new relationship between us and government, a relationship where we're obviously more left alone and less taxed, but more importantly, where we really have, as I say, the dignity, right? The self-respect to lead our lives according to our own principles, our own values, our own faith, the way that we want to make decisions for us and for our own families. I think that this is fundamentally what we're talking about, and why I believe that this election cycle is going to be about more important than small things. It's really about that relationship. It's about the nature of that contract between us and government and the society that we want to live in the United States. People come to the United States for opportunity. They do not come to the United States to be taken care of. And I think that for those of us that are born in the United States, we need to remember that and remember why it is that we're lucky to be here. And I think that the more you remember why it is that we're lucky to be here, the more you'll get pissed about the way things are going in the wrong direction.
Well, I mean, I can't even, on top of that, I'm going to have all Mike's links in our YouTube, on our Spotify, Apple, all of our platforms. We're going to put everything there. Go check them out. Interesting. I'd love to talk to you again, maybe in a month or two. See
we'll
how
do it
things are
again.
going. You've been great. Thank you for coming to the show.
Thank you, Larry.
You really
You're
are
a lot of fun.
You're a smart man, and obviously, I'm sure we'll agree to disagree, even on topics, of course, which is, please, I love that, because I know I don't know everything, and I always say that. The best thing I try to tell young people is this: be able to change. Just don't be hard-headed. I said one of my assets, even though Nick will say it takes 2 or more to change my mind, but you can argue, and eventually I will change my mind, and I hope people do.
And me
change their
too,
mind.
and I look forward to that.
Thank you very much.
so much.
I
It's
really
great to be
appreciate it.
with
I do
you.
appreciate it. Everybody, check Mike out on his platforms. There are in the links below. Check out all our sponsors. We will be back with another show. And have a great day, everybody. Please stay safe.
Fine jet. Nothing compares to it.
But it's definitely something you should hear.
This is The Real Deal with Larry Lawton.